Welcome, investors, traders, punters, and dribblers, to an exciting afternoon at the Traders Community Podcast. And what a day it was. One of those nice moves when it all comes together with a perfect ABC, and it's one of those great days when if you stay disciplined, you have a strategy, you have a plan, you will be rewarded. Lots to talk about.
Lots.
With 40-year inflation, and how was that a surprise? 10-year bond going over 2%. How's that a surprise? Bullard being a hawk. How's that a surprise? A bad 30-year T-bond. How's that a prize? How's it a surprise that a lot of these dribbler stocks gave back 25 to 30% today? And we'll talk about the great dribble fumble today. Well, that's for later, Madavi. That's for later. But oil and natural gas, we had the natural gas EIA report out today. We also, on oil, we had the OPEC report out. And we're going to go through a lot of the stocks we traded through the day and after hours. One of them is a firm that some moron over there leaked their earnings really early, and that'll be the focus of the fumble on the dribble. What else do we have? We traded Expedia, ACB, what was the other one? Zillow, all after hours in earnings. I think that's it. We walked through the VIX, that we trade the VIXY, which is an ETF. Johnny fiddled around on a few call spreads when it looked like it's coming off. I think it was Roblox and I forget the other one. Pfizer maybe. And then Bitcoin and Ethereum he was in. Did I miss anything? Bottom line is, it's high costs, it's predictable. Those in Wall Street seem to have a total disconnect with mainstream right now. And that was borne out by that perfect ABC that we talked about last night. Okay, nothing's ever certain though, of course. So, okay, let's get ahead. Let's start off with, so here's a brief overview. The one that I know I've had a little bit of difficulty with a lot of option structures and stuff like that with the lack of volume is things like the Russell and the IWM, so we didn't do too much. What's been glorious has been the E-minis and the Nasdaq. Natty Gas, not a lot today. It camped under $4. Oil really holding up quite remarkably strong, actually $90. When you think of all the negative sound bites that keep coming out from people like President Biden and stuff like that. Okay, let's get on to the main thing we did today. So, yesterday we went through the S&P setup, and it went exactly to that resistance, if you all recall, and it had to get over that for it to be meaningful. That bottom on the weekly chart we talked about, and on the daily over here, and that was its high. It was a bit of a gift. We did, as you call, buy puts at the close because vol was cheap. We actually, but what was really good about today, and I think I said that to a trader we talked to, Izzy, that like I was just shocked at. I mean, we couldn't believe it bounced, really, after those numbers. And it went right back to that line. So it gave us a perfect 1-2, which is one of the most powerful trades. So let's have a look at that, what we're talking about here. So we might have to go to an hourly to show up, Madabi, I think.
On what?
How it went down and then came all the way back after the inflation number. It was like crazy, really. So we have the inflation. So this is the SPOOs. Right, and so we come off. Yeah, maybe I could go 30 minutes. So this is why you combine your technical with your charts and all that, and your watching the sentiment and clouds. So here we have it, where we have the CPI number drop. So that's our high we just went through, right, everyone, on our up here. So we have the CPI drop, just a monster number, right? It was, sorry, you were trying to say something? So we had that big number, and it dropped, and it came basically all the way back. We had a 30-year auction. We had all this, and that was my comment about. And if you notice what was going up, it was your dribblers. It wasn't your apples or this sort of thing. I mean, they were hanging in there, but it was like insane, really, when you thought. And if anyone who can trade bonds and actually trades them and understands them, or Forex, you're like, what the heck? So it gave this perfect setup. And then they're all mad. And this is where we just delineate between the different stage of investors and traders. That's self-explanatory. Punters and dribblers. So and they're all blaming Bullard. You knew what he was going to say. He's the hawkish of the lot, I think. I mean, I'm struggling to think of who's more hawkish. You had monster numbers, right? I mean, what more could you say, right, mate? So anyway, we sold off perfect there on that. From a technical point of view as well, right? So look where it was. Let me bring that in. Yeah, so we're up at plus 1/8, right? Remember what it was. This was not a really difficult trade. And you knew where your risk was. And none of this is Johnny hindsight. This is all what we said was going to go on. And, of course, you didn't know. Here's what caught a lot of people, is that when we had, I think it was a jobs number, Biden or someone of the administration came out and warned about jobs, right? And which is selling off, mate? Zillow. No, that was a nice shot. We'll go through that in a sec with that. So I just want to show so this was just classic 1, 2, 3, right? And this gave you a chance, if you did what a lot of people are going to do, they're going to see how this eventuates. But just think, people wonder what the pros do and algos. I'll give you a little tip. They're not buying when it fills in the gap, right? Or fills in the hole, whatever you want to call this vacuum. So 1, 2, 3. So just classic stuff there, right? Now the difficult thing is, how short do you stay overnight? Because it is a Friday, and most major collapses, or at least the majority, what I recall, are on a Friday. So, and now with optionality, and optionality, remember we talk about know your OI. And don't confuse them with what used to be. So now it seems the dribblers on FibTwit are all over calling everything a gamma or a charmer or whatever. Look at open interest and think a gamma when it's actually a gamma squeeze is usually when it's something that's thinner, out of distance, and something like that. So this is a pure OI play, the 4500. You can see it keep bouncing off it. Think of it if you're familiar with DNT options and stuff like that. So pretty clear. We came down to that breakup point. We took a lot off here for the day risk. Obviously, you got your overnight risk. So if you bought optionality, you would have bought it pretty cheap up here. So that's an important thing when you think of when you buy your puts and calls. So let's move on to the Nasdaq, which is what Madavi traded. Okay, mate. Do you want to walk us through it's similar? I think we did pretty well the same thing today.
Yeah.
There's a daily. There you go.
Like I've been saying all week, I can't believe this thing's up. So I gotta say I was kind of short bias, which hasn't done me really good in the last couple of days. And oh man, and it would happen to have it. The only stock that is positive today is the one I'm short a lot, which is our snap.
Yeah, that's a weird one when you think. I'm not in it myself, but I'm watching it. I can only think it's a squeeze or something, or it's somehow there's a desk pushing the new Facebook agenda or something. I think that was Johnny. Johnny was talking about that. Weird. And particularly with the secondary. How big was that secondary, mate?
Well, it was 1.2 plus additional 200 million.
So yeah, it's a fair position.
I mean, that's a fair lot of money for a company that says that it's full year, now it makes money, it doesn't need to raise any more money. And what's the first thing they do? Raise money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is just really, really strange. But it's kind of what happens, not in a bull market or a bear market, but kind of any market. You get the outlier, right, when everything's up or down. I mean, and it's usually a specific thing. Like just today, that one surprises me, given the Nasdaq got drilled today, as we can see on these charts. And you could pretty well. This was one of the easier Nasdaq days, wasn't it? It bounced hard, but it didn't do the 300-point bounces. And SPOOs was pretty good too. Once it happened, I mean, obviously they're very similar. They had that move up. But we have held that line, but this is a perfect ABC, and it did come off the Cajun on the daily, and you can see on the weekly just... Didn't it actually was even weaker than the Nasdaq? I mean, sorry, the S&P. So let's have a quick look at the 10-year note, because that's what did this. So, and we actually tweeted this one, I think. But this has been in a steady uptrend for a long time, and it did that big sideways move. Those are trade bonds. And there's a couple of guys out there. There's Matt and Pit Boss are two that I'd recommend on Twitter. It's important that you've actually traded bonds, traded with size and all that to get the feel of it and what's going on and just the way the issue is. Now, a lot of stuff's traded, but this should not have been a surprise, and that's kind of the thing we have. I know that it sounds like we're being hard at times, but we just try to get the point across with the whole aspect. But this is when it busted, and that wasn't a surprise, and it gave you plenty of time. Look at that, Madavi. It didn't go straight to 2. I mean, and this is so the 10-year bond is massively traded, and you knew there was a 30-year coming out, and I noticed the 7 and the 10 actually are flat right now. So the curve has done this weird flattening in spaces, which to me it looks like the market, i.e. the bond market, is expecting them to raise, probably stuff it up, raise it too quick and kill economic growth out the curve. That's what it looks like. They're pricing it as. So anyway, while this is going on, they're buying the S&P and they're buying the Nasdaq, and then they're blaming other people for the... I mean, and here's the other thing, you don't always have to have a position. If you don't get it, then stay out of it, right? You know? You don't have to be in it. So just real quickly before we look at the stocks we did yesterday, Twilio, if you remember them from yesterday, that was the one Madavi shorted up around 260.
I still have 20 shares, actually. Sorry about that. I forgot about that.
You still got it? That was a beautiful short, and that's 207 at now. So this is a combination of dribbler, punter kind of stock, right? So it's not so it's a bit bigger. There's some depth to it, but it still went up $60 odd. And Sarah, who listens to us, she went into this thing yesterday 190 and got out at 260. So it's notice where she's getting in before it and taking advantage of that rip up. And we obviously weren't long into it. Well, I wasn't even in it, but Madavi, he took advantage of that sell. And remember, he walked you through how he did it yesterday. there's a little bit of pain and all that, and you build into it. Uber was another one we did yesterday. This was an interesting one today. This is a 3-minute chart, so we probably should look at it. So Uber, or Uber, depends where you're from, how you say that one, I guess. So this was one that we both went home short, and well, we didn't, almost short, home at the close, but you could have reshort it. Now what it did was it here? I guess it was here, it holded, right, during the day at 41. And here's what's funny, we'll talk about another one in a minute that I kind of fumbled on, which Madavi's not let me off.
But if you have mates like mate, they're okay, man. You know, they're good people. You know, they sit there, you make sure you get in, they watch you, they clap.
The clapper, that's for another discussion. I think we were going to talk politics.
It's a dribbler in the making.
So what I found interesting was, so Uber halts, and because they holded maybe, it was they holded on pending news or something, because they're having their investor meeting. Now, generally, in a company like this, we have the Dirty Dozen dribblers, which we will bring out at a certain time. But this is one of them. This is Uber. This is a classic. So part of the dribbler plan from management is to make it sound a lot better than what it really is, and you've got your coldish following that usually goes in the dribbler 12, right? A dribbler dozen. So this one, the expectation was that they hold it, they were going to get ripped up. You can see it fell $4 on this. And from what I saw, I didn't spend too much notice because we're in all our futures and stuff. But they said they were going to be cash positive at some stage this year earlier. Now, they either called BS on it or there was more to it. The point being, it held it and sold off. So that brings us, we'll look at one more. Disney we did yesterday. And did you stay short that? I remember you shorted it.
7. I did it for a quick trade.
Yeah, so that just dribbled off all day. Look at that. So let's look. I guess we can put them here. So we'll start off with the one I stuffed up. So I actually I'm fortunate through Traders Community over the years, we've got a real good network of professional traders and a lot of the news analysts and news talkers, I guess. So we get stuff a little bit early, and some stuff we act on and we can't. Well, we share it. So anyway, I get this little hint that AFRM Holdings, and before it was even like it hit Twitter, that some moron at the company had released the earnings early. And then, so I get it. I look at the stock, and the thing's ripping up. I think once was safe time to do. I think I might have told our Twitter followers something. Well, I don't really get on Twitter much during the day. Some of the people from Trades Community put on news and stuff. But anyway, we're on it. So first thing I notice is, and I tell the team, the crew, whatever we are, Madavi sells, and I go, I don't know if I should really sell that. I might get hold of it. It shouldn't have been released. So I fumbled that little. And this is a good dribble play, right? So anyway, I do that. He shorts it. And what I did notice, though, it was free to short. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I had every excuse to short it. So even the best of us stuff up at times. And
well, here's the key, guys. You always want to talk it down. You want to make sure you get your position first. So
I stuffed it up in multiple ways.
You just gave it to me. He sat watching it.
Yeah. I looked after my mates. Yeah.
I was like, these are terrible. This stock's this much. I was like, I'll take this. And then I was like, hey, this doesn't look very good to me. It looks very sick. But good luck, and they sat there and watched it. That was amazing.
Well, yeah, and then I was berating myself there, which I know I tell you not to do. But Anyway, so look what it got, and it got holded all the way down here. And is that a volume spike? Yeah, look at that volume spike. So it
yeah.
got down to $50. So I remember saying, yeah, maybe I should buy some of that. But then psychologically, I was so like, you know, I guess I shouldn't buy it. But what I did do is, I finally did relent and short some up here. I think we made like $4 each or something, right? But yeah, so don't second guess yourself when you have, and this is recalc. This was 8 plus 2 8s up here. This is a 3-minute chart. So, sorry, man.
I said they're made to it. It's called super dribbler when someone does that.
Yeah, that's a super dribble. That's a super fumble of a dribble. I mean, there's probably a technical term for that. They used to just call it pathetic. I mean, if I was playing football, they'd pull you off the field for that one. But so we got off track a bit there. That's what these stocks will do. So after hours, we traded. I can't remember that first one. There was a.
Zillow, I think we traded.
Yeah, we traded that after hours.
Right now, it's falling off pretty good. Look at that, it's falling off. Remember, guys, on days up like this, when you see stocks running up, just fade them.
Well, actually, no. This one we actually traded long for a bit.
Yeah, we did because it had really good earnings. They got rid of 85% of the inventory for money that they bought. They tried to go into a home business, but I guess they're not so good at selling homes. They stick to what they know.
Well, so yeah, there was a lot of people that had been worried about Zillow because if you recall, they were buying houses unseen. I wish I knew that. I would have flogged ours to it. But anyway, so a lot of them were real dumps apparently. So the concern was, as everyone knows, I think it was well, let's have a look where it was. When all that nonsense started, I guess we got to go to a weekly chart. So we go to a weekly on it. I mean, I can't remember when all that became, but this was a $200 stock. I'm guessing in here, I don't really trade Zillow or analyze it. I mean, we traded this sort of situation, but I'm assuming it's in there, Mado. I don't know, somewhere in here.
Where Zillow was at 52.
No, I mean when it come out that they it came out that they owned all those.
Yeah, so look at when the market ends. Let me look at it. I can look at it over here. So it came out like around 50, and I got it like at 50. I got it at 50 actually. At 50 and a half, we got it on the first time. We rolled it up to 57s. And
yeah, that was a nice trade.
I think you went to the different ones. I don't know.
Yeah. So I type it in real quick, and I'll go through what I did in a sec. But it came up as ZG. So there's a Zillow group and there's a Zillow. So there's ZG and Z. So Z's the one the second time ago, but ZG. I'm not sure what the difference is, but this one went up more. So,
like Google, whatever.
Yeah, one's called Class A, one's Class C, but I'm not exactly sure what that class is all about, right? So, so there we got. You can see it was actually a real good technical buy. Got minus 2/8, and it ran up. Now in here, when I didn't get into about here, and I'll show you on the other chart, but equivalent. Because Madavi read that they started doing their statement, and it said they'd sold like 80% of that inventory that they bought from that everyone was worried about. So that was a good punt. So we've got this pop here, and then you've gone short up here when it ran out.
Yeah, so it was really good. Look at the move on it. It's been parabolic. Now it's starting to come off a little bit. That's why I'm shorted, and I'm up a little bit. I got out of some, took some profits already. Just looking to see.
Let me see. It's ZG, right? The other one I did. Yeah. See, I did Zillow Group, and you can see it did have a great move, but it didn't go as far. And this is about where I've got in because of that news you read, and so it's about $1.50 less the reward. And if anyone knows the difference or is bothers, we'll look.
You got to remember, when you're trading aftermarket stocks, I mean, you're basically typing it up. You got to read all the information, gather as much as you can, and make the trade.
You got to, it's a reaction.
Oh, yeah. And, as much as I want to be a cyborg, it's, you're never 100% right. It's a matter of seconds and knowing how to execute. Executions probably becomes the most important thing.
Oh,
when you're in the
100%.
market. You have to live and die with your system.
And if you miss, you miss. You know, move on, yeah, or go the other way or whatever in time or whatever, but move on.
Moves, and it's it's kind of it can get mind-boggling.
And remember, when you trade, you look for where you have an edge. And if I don't have an edge in something, or even believe I have an edge, that's important too.
Always looking for exits. You know, one thing I always look for, I always look ahead for exits. You know, because some shit could go down, and where's your exit? Most people just sit there with their hands in their, I don't know, folded in their laps or something.
Up there, proverbial, yeah. I mean, so as we taught, so a key to a good trading is having, like we mentioned, like it's like defense in football or rugby or something. So you build your defense, so you know where you're wrong, you know where you missed the tackle, basically, right?
Hey, remember, these spreads are not a penny. In the aftermarket, these spreads could get sometimes, depending on the stock, well, they could get up to $1, $2, 50 cents.
Well, that's how I knew I was in a different one. Do you remember? I go, dude, why is this thing got a 30-cent spread? 40, and he go, what are you talking about? I was in the ZG and he was in the Z. So Z was tighter. How much is it now?
It's like 20 cents, 30 cent spreads on average. But you know, when it closes up, remember, when it widens out, it means they don't know what the stock's going to do. So everybody's guessing what the stock's going to do. Whenever it gets tightened, right, is when it's making a shuffle and it's going to break out. It's going to make a move that up or down, right? So when it spreads out, you know, it first got to come together before it makes the move. So it's either going to go up or down.
Yeah, and some of these stocks, particularly what we label the dribbler or the punter, and this is why they went up so much when they were hot, is market makers aren't in them. You know, and if they are, it's going to be very widespread. So that's why you get those crazy moves. That's probably explains Twilio yesterday. So those that do have a market maker, he's gets made short or long by the market too, and that's why gap fills basically work in gap ups and gap downs in futures and something where it's a heavy, because and they'll adjust the gap up so they can get out of their position because they're made long or short by the market, right? That's their role, and so that happens in stuff like this.
Hey, mate, how about this one? There's people who bought Twilio yesterday at 62 points higher. So imagine being that guy today.
Yeah. And
it's 60 points higher. You're like,
well, yeah, and that's why I singled out that trade Sarah did. That one of our listeners shared it with us, and she went in like 190 long. I want to say. Hope she doesn't mind me saying, but what a great exit. 260. So you're already in there. You're conscious of what's going on. Your mind's going to be in the right spot. As I said, neither of us were in it long, and then waited for the short as it went through yesterday. Well, Madavi did that, and which that was a great trade and explained it really well. And look where it was today. We just looked at that.
I mean, big difference between 60 points. I mean, you might never recover from that.
It just gives you an idea. Those that did get caught in the whole, you know, there's a lot of people who think they're great traders, and you can always look great, or an investor, whatever you want to call it, in a bull market, right? And this was an extraordinary one because it was fed by the COVID money. It got way oversold, and everyone's at home. All of a sudden, everyone's a trader investor, which is all well and good, but countless warnings. And there's people we know that we said, this isn't real, this isn't. And finally, they lose it all, basically. And you don't want that to happen, November, December. So it was unreal times, right? Now, people like us, you don't. I don't know how many times people told us we don't know what we're looking about. You fool, it's different, but it never is. People are very, very. They're human. They're the same. And I just tell people, there's books way back from the French Revolution about crowd behavior. Go read them. Nothing's changed. You know, there's even an English version now for you. But so people are people. Fear, greed, all this stuff, know-it-alls. You know, People want to be satisfied for their ego. So you want to get rid of all those weaknesses. That's why we kind of we don't really preach, but we share what we do.
A chip on your shoulder, I believe. It helps. Confidence is really what really makes your trading. You got to be very confident in what you do. Otherwise, you will miss moves and you'll second guess.
Yeah, you'll second guess. And that's another thing. If you're going to learn to trade, don't just follow. Oh, that's not, I said it wrong. What I meant to say was actually learn to trade or invest in the market and what suits all your different categories, your personality, your wealth. Don't just blindly follow someone, And by the time information's public, unless you're, a firm's a good example. Look how early I got that, right? But people see, here's a different thing. People knew there was something out there because it got around, so they just bought it, kind of like the Uber one, right? They bought it, they assumed it was good. Then when it comes out, they go, oh, and they're all long it. You can see by the volume. So they all hit the bids. But so being creative or just working that out, that's why Madavi had that short on. And I fumbled it, a bit like...
But that all goes to the confidence of what I think our abilities are sometimes, and sometimes just not thinking of it. It's not.
You're reacting, right? You're being proactive.
And is if you're having a good day, you're confident about it. Sometimes you can touch everything you touch becomes gold, and sometimes anything you touch becomes
crap. Yeah.
Good. So maybe on those days you might not want to push your luck.
Yeah, there's a good theory. It's called the Martingale Principle, which is a backgammon, blackjack. Not backgammon. And it's worth doing that. So so there's great traders like what's his name? I'll think it'll come to me. But so basically, and they call it a hot streak or cold streak, but really it's psychology. You're confident and you're doing it. We don't mean egotistical. That's not what we're talking about. You're confident in your ability, you have a plan, and that sort of thing. Yeah, and it's very important in these kind of markets that are very fast and deadly. And they can be brutal. And you don't want to second guess, oh, should I take profit here, should I not? Usually if you've been around enough, the fact you're asking that question is pretty well telling you to take profit, right? Or to take some off the table, right? But yeah, so let's look at, Expedia was the next one. I didn't do this because I didn't want to tie up 200 grand worth of bloody margin, right?
That's a really nice technical chart on that thing. Now look at this.
Expedia?
I'm in Zillow still. It's bouncing back a little bit.
Oh, okay. I just do you want me to put Zillow back on?
No, it's all good. I got very few shares left now. I got most of it.
So Expedia was, they had earnings as well. Now this is real. In fact, I might bring it down to 1 minute or 30 seconds. Yeah, look at these moves. These are real. These are $20, $15, $10 moves. Like on the minute, right? These are 1 minute. In fact, let's even bring it down, 30 seconds. These are in 30-second bars are real. So so if you want to buyer beware, whatever you want to call it, not have a game plan, this is where you get caught. Because a good hallmark of the dribbler is either buying on some antiquated technical system, like backdated, like a slow-moving, which works in a bull market, slow-moving average.
How crazy the Expedia was. I shorted the first short I did. It was a 207. It went down to 200, and that's when my greed started giving me. Oh, maybe it's going to break the 200. I get more money. I said, forget it. I'll take it. This thing's really strong. These vacation stock things always screw me up every time I get greedy. I got out of like a 250. Next thing I know, this thing shot up to 212.
Yeah, and this is a 30-second chart, people. So.
And then at 212, I was like, perfect. Poof. I hit it again. I shorted it, rode all the way back down. I think I got out half at 203, and I got out the half at 201.
Wow, and that went 1 to 2. Wow. Look at these moves. So what we're talking about is, so if you're not confident, and this is how, if you follow Elliott Wave, ABCs, the fifth wave, this is where that we label these people for a reason and to make a point, to help your trading. They're going to buy here, then they're going to sell here. That's what happens. And this is just brutal. I didn't trade this, and obviously you don't do this with a lot of size. You adjust accordingly, but a vacuum like this is kind of crazy, right? But this was what a lot of these stocks did back in the dribbler heyday, right? Before it all went to crap. And all these people were just, it wasn't just buying. And there was always an excuse. Oh, it's going up because of this or that or whatever. But you don't have to do that trade. Options this, options that. There's plenty of people... so you either avoid it or work out what's going on, right? So that's a good example. And I didn't do it, as I said. That's a $200 stock. And what did it say? They gave me some warning on it anyway. So there's that Expedia. This little ACB, this is one I pretty well always short it. And unfortunately, there's not much left in it. Aurora Cannabis. This is today. Just today, it popped out of earnings, and I just basically got on the offer as soon as it started stalling, and so I'm still just holding that. That's in our dribbler. Is that in our dribbler? Does Dirty Dozen? I know Tilray is. I think this may be in with it. But so basically, this is a company we know. It pops up on an earnings or on a cannabis play. We kind of all know that story. I think everyone's familiar how that these were all going to rip up when Biden came in. It turned out he wasn't going to legalize it, etc., etc. A lot of them, most of them don't make money. They're top heavy.
Biden, but I like Tilray. I gotta say.
Yeah. So Tilray's issue is more that there's a lot of stock. They did a few takeovers they shouldn't have done. It doesn't mean so. Out of all this, eventually that all.
I'm a stucky in that one.
Yeah.
You call me a stucky. That's a name for it. When you're stuck in something.
Stuck like in the mud, yeah. But I guess you can sell a lot of puts, right?
Yeah, I sell a little puts. I collect a little bit of money here and there, but hey, someday when it eats through those billions of shares, hopefully people are willing to do 50 years in prison for it, and now one day just be out there running it.
That's pretty well low stocks. So anyway, that's just it. We just wanted to share that. That's the sort of thing we like to do that pops up, and you're familiar with it. You notice I had absolutely no interest even trying to buy this thing, did I? I was like, just waited yours. And that's what a lot of market makers, hedge funds, and that are going to do, right? So, and often people want to know, it's just, I guess to us, it's common sense. And before you go in, you already know where the options are, you know where the shorts are, and that sort of stuff. I think that we did them all. I think Zillow, ACB. So another great trader, I like trading this a lot, as you probably all know, is Apple. This was just a gift from God today. You can say that because of the whole Garden of Eden thing, if you think I'm being blasphemous. I'm digging a hole for myself, aren't I? So this, I got a good handle on this pretty much because of I traded. I see the market maker is liquid. I can see the positioning, and it just works really good technically. So as I showed you earlier, and this was another reason it gave me confidence with the SPOOs.
You guys got to remember, Apple, I don't ever trade it because too many good traders are in that. You got to be like the best traders are in Apple.
Well, you try to make me buy you a beer or something? I mean...
No, I don't want to compete with those guys. I'd rather go somewhere where they're not so great, because usually the market makers, first of all, when you trade Apple and all these types of Microsoft and everything, usually they're the best guys. They're top. They're like the lead guys. They get those types of stocks. All right. So the competition spirit by everybody else is in there. I don't like going playing that mud. I like to go take it where the guys are not so good, and I got an advantage.
I guess my advantage here is I understand that mindset, so that's kind of why I do it.
My point is, you got to be a really good trader to trade those stocks.
Geez, I better stop trading it then. I might be on a
No,
hiding.
I'm not saying that's why I tend to stay away from those. Sometimes I trade it, but not often.
Well, you don't. Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's it's lots of air pockets in it, and you can see what they're doing, and it's a good one to learn if you want to understand that game. And if you're a SPOOS trader, it's probably a good. You can watch some of or an NQ trader, you can see what's going on. But if we compare this to what we just looked at with the S&P and the NQ, and remember that this stock and the other 4 or 5, the 5 make up a quarter of the SPOOS and 40% of the NAS, right? So these weren't performed. So you got negative divergence when you compared Apple. So even if you don't trade it, watch it to see what it's doing. Microsoft's another one. I just stick to this one. But I was able to buy puts for nothing up here. I mean, this was one of those beautiful. It was a pretty good day if you way we trade and technical. Buying stuff for 8 and flogging it for 90. I mean, what more can you ask, right?
That's some good stuff, man. Not too many people can trade that stock and be consistent like you are.
Yeah. Well, so what I do is I tend to stick to oil, natty, SPOOS, Apple, and then I'll do the odd story stock. And I think if you have good confidence with you knowing someone for a long time, you know they're not going to BS you. I can literally, if Madavi says, and I'll know sometime if there's some I don't agree because it doesn't fit my other risk or whatever, margins, whatever you want to talk about. But some I just know, right? That's why it's kind of funny with the AFRM one. Because normally I would have just gone bang with. So when I found it and said it, right? So that's why I'm getting a hard time for that one. But so that's important. If you got, so I know I said earlier, don't just blindly follow. But I think once you get in a good team kind of environment or someone you're confident with, so that's how it works in a shop too. Is exactly. I mean, all that really happened. We're not in the shop anymore. We're our own, I guess, right? So.
When I first started trading, there were 3-4 stocks we should trade: Intel, Cisco, Microsoft, and Dell. So then those were the best traders in there, and that's how I figured out, man, you gotta be pretty good in those things. But that's what I learned off of. So mate's right. If you could muddy around with the best over there, you're gonna be pretty good.
And you don't actually have to trade it, but watch it at least. Get to know the movements. And now in today's day and age, where you've got so much better charts, so much speed of execution, so you now can compete with these guys. But remember, you're not going to beat a computer. They're sitting right on they don't have the human emotions, but they're also sitting right on the exchange. So the reason NovaWave works, the math side of it, that's what we worked out a long time ago. That's what a lot of the machines are doing. They're not the news machines. But there was a time, remember back at the 15 years ago, I can't remember his name now, but he came out with his own news thing.
Oh, John Hogg?
No, that guy to work with when we had, it was over in Florida. He had that news system software that picked it up after hours. I can't remember his name. You remember? So it was uncanny, and you could get it. But then that was before all the systems got up. What was his name? Steve, maybe? Can't remember. You'll think we'll talk about it after hours. But so now that the machine's going to get that every time now, right? I mean, that was him just before. So you got to look. You now have to react to the react.
Well, you remember back in the day, what we used to listen to was the Chicago Pit when they used to So we used to sit there and wait, and when the pits, because when you're watching the future, there's one thing, because there could be no one there, and all of a sudden, they'll run the spoons up. But when you knew the place was crowded and they start screaming, that's when you knew the trade was real. So we used to subscribe to just
what
the
was
voice.
That called? It was called
TikTok.
It was a squawk. What we know is a squawk box to now. But yeah, so you would hear the energy in the field, and if you're a trader who've actually been there, so you're getting that before you see it on the chart, right? Which is kind of like looking at order flow. But unfortunately, those days are gone now. Everything's electronic and all that. But that was a huge thing if you could, just the noise. And remember back then, There was no E-mini. It was a big contract, which is 5 times what the E-mini is, and I know there's a micro now, but so I think it was like a handle and a half spreads. So it was, your P&Ls would swing around. So they are different times, but that hardened you up, as I would say. It's live or die, right? Well, let's look at oil real quick. So nothing. So it's pretty much the same. You know what's going on the weekly. You got this pennant building, and it's just sticking on the tank, and on the daily and on the weekly. Look, it's just sitting here, and the Chicows come in, which was Johnny was talking about before. So really, on the downside, 85. What is that? 85.80 is what would have to get under on a weekly to be concerned. Here, you can pretty well draw this pennant now on the daily. See all this? You can see it on the 4-hour. So if it breaks all this cloud, then you got a nice downtrend. But you're right on the cloud. News-wise, you've got... well, first, before we go into that, what's interesting, we had the concern with inflation. One of the big things is energy, right? Cost, and there's a whole breakdown of on the Trades Community website. There's one of the guys does that stuff, and you can see where it is. But energy is one of the things, and you've got President Biden's out today, and he's been saying it since $40 and whatever gasoline was there. Oh, we're working on getting it lower. I mean, it's just so that's got to the point where, and if you where there's so little confidence in that, or just calling the BS on it, there's an underbid from that. Then you got the Iran deal underbid. You got Ukraine and thing. Now, what was the other thing you're talking about to do with oil and gas? Or something else?
It was the Russia, Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, and the Biden. So I think it's just general, the economy opening up. That's right, all the mass. So you've got that big headline event that cracked the spurs today and the bonds, and the oil just went about its way, right? So it gives you an idea of the structure there. And so I see comments like, well, if it happens in Russia, it doesn't affect WTI, or it doesn't affect Brent. Yes, they're all different oils, but and a good point Madavi made to me, we're just chatting off the market. And a lot of countries do have refineries to whatever their colonial power was, or wherever the oil company, whatever it was. But a lot of them can shift and change because they've got multiple things, right? So yes, you can ship and change between a lot of them. It's not totally like that, but a lot of trading is psychological too. So it influences it on a psychological basis. We saw that with natural gas. We saw people buying the bloody US Henry Hub because the Dutch one was going up. Remember that? It went to 650, and you couldn't tell them.
Zillow was breaking below 57, mate.
Zillow has? Nice short there. Yeah, I didn't do the, because I'm so dedicated to
I gotta be, since, and we're doing this I gotta be getting money while we're doing this, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, I should have stayed in that. ACB, I've still got that.
While we teach.
Exactly, yeah. We're like, don't follow our version of capitalism where we do everything for free and costs us money.
We're trading. There's time to give back some, it's time to give back a little bit.
So here's NG while we talk about it. Just no change from yesterday. You can see it. If you know your optionality, you can see it span around 4. So you just see that on your 4-hour, you got the tanking, just pushing it. Now, here's another definition of a dribbler from the commodity point of view, and that's kind of where it comes from, is they get into things like natty gas. So look how violent this is. Even if you know it, even if you got great credit lines, even if you're going to get caught on this sometimes. You can't always be right. So just imagine if you're second guessing and all that. Look at these spikes. They're either going to be stop outs of people chasing deltas, or but if you look at the breakdown, if you could, on the speculator breakdown, that's where they come in. But just look technically, this thing's very nice technically, but it is violent with these spikes, right? I mean, there's not many things like the old natty. Look at this. Doesn't muck around, does it? It's not for the faint-hearted. And there's what, double or triple ETFs we play in sometimes? Are they double or triple, like cold?
Like cold or...
Yeah, cold's the down one and boil's the one up. And I remember doing some options in one of them, and it was like $3 spreads getting out of them. So, yeah, you do that once. And made money on it. That's only because it moves so much, So, and as far as options for the contract, that's the ONs, is you can just do them under CME or OTC. But they're massive. That's a massive market over the counter. So bear in mind of all the things you don't see when you trade these things. I haven't really had much experience in ags, but I'm guessing... there's a lot of that. There's a few grain traders and cattle traders I'm pretty good mates with. I should get them to, and over time we'll get real traders come on and share that kind of insights from other markets. I know there's a buddy of mine that's a gold trader that's going to come on next week or so. So,
hey, that's it right here. Oh.
Yeah. Well, you're just a bloody buyer of the gold. you don't trade it in and out all day like we do.
I buy it and hold it. It's gonna be my boy.
You're like your own central bank. You like the Swiss central bank. Just buy it.
Hey, I don't keep any cash. So I gotta go cash and gold sometimes.
Right. So we covered. So Johnny, I think Johnny's up in the metaverse. He may pop in. Let's have a look what the crazies did today. The Bitcoins. So we can see... Well, one thing I didn't mention yesterday, and Johnny meant to mention it, there's an article he put on Traders Community, but they busted, you probably all know now, but it's the biggest financial bust ever, of 3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin they recovered. And it's
when it first happened, it was 80 million or something, right?
Yeah. So actually, they should be grateful that those people held on to it, I guess, right? But it was as much as 4 billion if it was at today's prices, because what got to, and someone sent a message, I think it was on Twitter, or it might have been on YouTube, that
But mate, who gets that money back? The government usually keeps that money for themselves? I don't think they give it back to that firm that got stolen, do they?
They're meant to make, so in conditions of fraud, I think they make them whole. Isn't that what they meant to do? It depends if it's...
I've never seen it happen, like these stock deals and everything. They take the guy's mansion, they take everything, and don't give anything to the investors. The only ones that I ever seen getting paybacks are Madoff ones. And who knows what the reason is behind that. But everybody else usually gets, well, we got them. Hey, you got to be happy with
it. Profits are crying to pay for, I guess, all stuff. But this was, they say it was 4 billion.
It should be
it's 4 billion. And you know what's funny is that's a couple.
Should return all that money to the original owner, but I don't think they do. I think they end up keeping it for themselves.
Well, I noticed Binance was cooperating. Maybe Binance gets some back if they paid someone back. But, like you said...
Is either Binance's money or their customers' money? Does that money
Which is just another exchange.
Well, look at it this way. If I'm the FBI, I'm assuming it was FBI, Department of Justice, I think it says actually. So what did you say? It was worth 80 million and now it's worth 4 billion? Yeah, they probably think, that's my brokerage fee. I'll give them the 80. That's how Goldman pays their... Oh, I shouldn't have said that, should I? A lot of these bankers will pay their $10 million fine, right, when they've just made a couple of hundred. But, hey, let's not go down that route. I know too many of those guys.
No, because the FBI and all that gets all paid with the U.S. tax money, right?
Yeah.
All the taxes you pay.
Hey, how are you?
This money, do they return it? I don't think they do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Well, I think if they did, it would just be that. It's like if they recover a stolen painting. But definitely the profits from it, they would keep, yeah.
I don't think they can't keep it because you got to turn the actual coin. It's like taking a painting. The painting's gone up $2 billion in that time. Has been found.
Well, so here's so they recovered it. Okay, $4 billion, or I think some of it was spent, so it's 3.6 left, something like that. So they're going to have to sell that into the market, aren't they?
No, because if they're righteous, they should just return everything back to the original owners and let them decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, be interesting what happened. I think that's for something for Johnny to follow up on. That's a really good question. Yeah. Wasn't
Johnny just here? Johnny.
He was here, but in the metaverse, I think you flirt between room to room. But so that's something to worth looking at. But so there's two. So some people. So the comment out of the U.S. government, the Department of Justice, is that hey, this shows that we can secure this, we can protect it from fraud, etc. So there's some people saying, yeah, that's really good, that makes Bitcoin better. But a lot of people are saying, hang on, that means that we're not so secret anymore. What's the word? Not secret. You know what I mean? More independent from government control. So yeah, interesting, the two different takes on the whole thing.
What Bitcoin was written about, you know?
Right, to keep out the man sort of thing, yeah. So it's interesting how that will develop. But what an amazing story, really. I mean, and a lot of people think it's a misdirection because they're only 30 and 31. So basically, or something like that. And so I guess they were younger when they did it, obviously. And I think the guy was from Russia and the woman's from America or something like that. I mean, I just know a vague copy of it because it was a busy day. But interesting story and great for conspiracy theories, right? Make up your own. Isn't that what half of FibTwit's about? Now, here's interesting. I just got sent a message from Ryan Sitton, who's the Railroad Commissioner for Texas. So basically that's who approves different things like wells and stuff. So anyway, he's just said this. This is interesting. We're talking about energy. And I'll just read verbatim what he said, Madavi. For all the chatter and posturing around the future of energy, this is real. A new type of nuclear reactor produces twice as much energy as older designs, with temperatures 10 times hotter than the sun. Now that is cool. Now he's put a link in there to Science.org. So that's interesting. Now that's an oil. He's the Texas Railroads. He's obviously an oil and gas guy, saying that. So I know there's been a lot of politics about pushing nuclear energy. A lot of people are against it for the main reason is the nuclear waste and the accidents, right?
Well, it's the cleanest energy by far if you don't have the spills.
Yeah, so the downsides are spills, yeah. And so if we want to talk, I think we've talked about this before with the energy the whole Ukraine, Russia, Germany thing. So the reason Germany is in the position they're in is because after Fukushima, they shut down all their nuclear reactors. And I think most of them, I can't say I'm not certainly no expert on this, but from what I understand, they weren't as vulnerable. Like Fukushima was built on water, the edge of water and all this sort of stuff, you know. So we know it wasn't as proof as it should have been. So that then put them in a vulnerable thing at the same time as the ESG movement. Now, what's interesting for ESG to work, you would think with the number of time. We all know the downside of solar is basically the heat, but the sun not being on all the time, but you can obviously good batteries. The downside of batteries is rare earth, and again, the similar problem with nuclear disposal. What I just really find interesting of ESG is there's never any mention of that waste disposal with cars and stuff like that. Yet, those same people will be against nuclear, and it's same sort of toxicity. So that the trade epitome and knowing too many politicians tells me there's a lot of payments going on and misdirection between these industries.
In the mountains, right? They put in the mountain shafts and everything. Then we're going to put a bunch in Las Vegas where people were riding because all that nuclear was going to come through their towns.
Right. And so one interesting thing with the rocket people on that, because that's obviously pretty distasteful, these billionaires just pissing money against the wall to go to space, right? But one of them said, that's so we can put nuclear waste on Mars or something. Oh, okay. Or on a meteor or whatever. No, hopefully not on a meteor, but you get the drift.
A meteor becomes hits a planet. Oh my God! A nuclear explosion.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. You get more bang for your buck on that one. Sure, that
Great fireworks.
So anyway, I just saw that. I thought I'd share that with everyone because that's probably a topic. I'm in two minds on that. I obviously mindful of Fukuyama and mindful of Chernobyl. We know the real damage from it. We know what's the one in America, Island, 3 Mile Island, I think they made that movie, Silkwood. But then there's the argument with terrorists can blow it up and all this sort of stuff. But we got to do something, don't we, people? At some point. Anyway, so that's Bitcoin held up all through this. Did come off 2,000. But what was interesting, Bitcoin reacted like the major markets the same way to interest rates. So obviously the machines are tying these all in together. So that's Ethereum and Bitcoin. Let's go back to where we're at. We can see we're as far as the SPOs go, we're back around at 4,500. That's a big open interest area. Oils around 90. You can see these are big, like $4 on Natty, 2,000 on the Russell. So we're all. You don't have to be an options expert to understand how they influence, right? So VIX. We did trade VIX today, or the VIXY, which is a double ETF, right? Or single? Double, right?
I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty good value one. On those things, just remember, as investments, these things are terrible. They lose all their value. They're just good as trading vehicles. Anyone that's from the energy world knows that from UNG, for example. I think we pretty well covered everything pretty good, I think. I'll just give the final numbers, I guess. The Dow was down 500. Nasdaq was down 300. Spurs were down 80. We all know with the 10-year note, got over 2. What was the close on the 2-year? I think it was 193, the yield. Anyway, it'll be on the site. So tomorrow, what do we have out? Friday. Let me see. Oh, we did have jobs out today too. What were they? Jobless claims decreased by 16,000 to 223. Well, kind of everyone probably forgot that with the inflation, right? Where I'm looking for... Sorry, man? Oh, that's what I wanted to share. So the CMI... So if you got CME, just go to CME and look at it's called the FedWatch tool, or put that in your browser. CME FedWatch tool. So there is a future on Fed funds, and that's what this is, and they got it in a nice format. So now after the CME today, they're pricing in a 50% probability for a 50 basis point hike in March. Now, when is our next Fed meeting? On the 22nd, I believe. Someone just told me. So the 22nd of February is the next FOMC. So that's 12 days ago. You got a lot of data. They say it's data dependent. Well, it's going to have to be some pretty bad data to stop a rise, isn't it? So 50% probability of 50 hike in March. And listen to this, though. After Mr. Bullard's comments, which we're all familiar with now, it's now increased to 98.6% by the close of that contract today. It was at 24% yesterday. So really, at 44.95 on the SPOs, people don't think it's going to hurt things. Or are they just... it's such a weird market right now.
You know, we get a sell-off after the first raise, and then it bounces back normally if you look back charts. And then you get the third time, I think is really when the market starts getting fidgy. But I don't know if it's going to repeat the same patterns of normal times.
So it's going to be interesting. So have your views and strategies, but you notice when we put them on, is off technical levels, extreme levels, and stuff like that as well. So there's an old saying, markets get dumb and they get even really stupid. So a lot of these things in hindsight, that was an obvious sell or buy. If you look at any bubble burst, or when it doesn't burst, what keeps it going? But you really don't know when there's so much money flowing around and so many people so just think, in 2008, all the crooked bankers, and that's the nicest thing I can say about them, got away with it. A lot of them became government officials, even central bankers probably, but definitely treasury officials. So now they know that it's all called moral hazard, what they can get away with. You got that. You now got all these central bankers owning a ton of stock. Oh, sorry, not the individual banks, but the bank, not the banker. I misspoke. Like Bank of Japan, Swiss National Bank, Norge, and all these people. Big punters, big players. You got BlackRock, Fidelity. So these are things that have just become beasts that the Fed and that can't really control. So you don't really know what they're doing. If they decide to dump something or buy something, that's what half these moves are, right? So keep that in mind. And so that's the unexplainable, and that's why you never put it all on red, right? What do we have out tomorrow? Where I usually get it from doesn't have it. Oh, yeah, here we go. I thought it was something big. So tomorrow we get the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment for February. Now, if you recall, back when some of the heavy selling started, basically when I was done with it, October, November, was when we had that really bad consumer sentiment. So I'd imagine consumer sentiment isn't real strong at the moment. If you talk to people with Omicron, people, I think Biden's the most unpopular president ever now. If not, I think he is, right? And then I know he's vice president. So you got all that sort of stuff. It doesn't good. You got all the talk about wars. We had the big churn on the stock market. Except this, they did manage to get it back on the last day of the month. And that's when the majority look at their 401ks, right? So it's not going to, it's going to be interesting what it tells us. But it also, the reason I look at the breakout, are the people in the street scared of inflation? Are they scared of this? Are they just dissatisfied? But generally, those sort of things are what affect people's decisions, and we're all different, right? So that's. Do we have any earnings tomorrow? Let me have a look on the website.
These NQs ain't bouncing, man. They're just selling off.
Yeah. I'm watching the.
I was just long it. I just flipped out.
Where's our NQ futures? He's our Nasdaq right here. That's for 3 minutes. Let me bring that up to 30 seconds. You can do 1 second if you want. I bet it's pretty thin though.
Yeah, it's not moving that much. I mean, today was crazy, man. This morning I got up. Actually, I was up late trading. I wanted to trade Twitter, and Twitter's earnings came out. I bought it, made some money. I took a little nap, and I came back. I was like, wow, we bounced all the way back, and then we went down again. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It looked like it was going to be an up day for a second.
Yeah, it was crazy how that little bounce. I mean, it was lucky that we have that discipline. Otherwise,
because I might have got caught in that. So I avoided a dribbler move.
Yeah, there was some dribbles. That dude, how about that Twilio? Looking at that, I mean, that AFRM must have called it.
I mean, I know guys that probably thought, oh, Twilio's back at 400, and they got it 65 points higher right now.
Yeah, for sure. So who we got tomorrow? We're just on the weekly that on Trades Community. We just have 4 stocks. Apollo Global Management, looking for $1.08. Dominion Energy, which all the Natgas players will know that one, big basis, and natural gas energy. Upper Virginia, they're 93 cents expected. Fortis, which is FTS. That's 58 expected. And Magna, which is 81% MGA. Magna, if you're not familiar, is, they call that, wow, new lows selling off here on NQ. That's a 1 second chart. But that'll make you trade. 1 second chart. Let me put that to a minute then.
Good thing they got a,
Yeah, look at that. So Magna's like well, when GE was a solid company, that's the kind of Canadians, GE, good dividends and all that. I understand from Canadians. And their car parts. So they'll be interested. People should listen to their conference call with everything that's going on. That's going to be interesting, actually. I just thought of that in Canada because you got the trucking blockade and all that. The real draconian politics, as you know, up there in Canada. So it'll be interesting, that conference call, what they got to say about that, the supply industry and all that sort of thing. That's about it from us. I hope you enjoyed it. We tried to cover a little bit different, give a view on actually what we see and where we get it right and wrong, what affects us, the market, and hopefully that gives a better clear to all different levels of traders and investors. And hopefully, what did Johnny say today? We got to stop the dribblers dribbling. Well, you can even, no matter how good you are, you'll fumble here and there, as I did on a firm today, right? That was a gift from God. Like
95, 8% of the market was down. I'm in the biggest shit one that's up.
Right. So yeah, snap, crackle, pop, and there's a story there. So on that, everyone, thank you for joining us. Like us, subscribe, share, and you can. Always feel free to hit us up on if there's something you want us to look at, and we appreciate it when you do because it. Yeah, exactly, and that's the reason we do it. So the more people interested, obviously, the more incentive we have to help or learn, and we learn too, obviously, all the time.
Yeah, it reminds me what not to do every day, so this is helpful for all of us.
Yeah.
And put in comments if there's anything you guys are like to see more of, and see if we could facilitate it.
Yep, perfect. Well, thanks, Madawi. Thank you. Johnny was in for a bit. He's actually getting ready for a trip to Mexico, so that's been taking a bit of his time.
Vacation, Johnny.
Yeah, he's going to come back a lot heavier, I think, is the bet. We're trying to bet how much weight he's going to put on with all that really good food down there. So everyone have a good evening. We'll see you later.